him down!
Mother, no!
You are watching The Bible Witness.
I'm walking quickly through the alley to meet a man I knew.
Hey, handsome. Want some fun?
A prostitute tried to seduce me from a doorway, her voice teasing, her smile meant to lure. But I didn't slow down.
You don't like chicks, sir? Let me serve you in the way they can.
In this city of Sodom, pleasure reigned while the poor rotted. I keep walking until the wooden sign of the restaurant came into view. I stepped inside. The air was thick with steam, the scent of bread and sweat. There he is, the man I'm going to meet. He's sitting alone at a worn wooden table. I approached without a word and sat across from him until he pulled back his hood, revealing a face I hadn't seen in years.
Uncle Abraham!
Hear me, Lot. You must leave Sodom immediately. A disaster is coming.
As he spoke, a sudden noise cracked through the room. Two men wrestling violently in a corner. No one stopped them. No one cared. The city was rotting from the inside. Why?
I was talking with God Himself just a week ago. I remember the night clearly, the moment the darkness shifted and He came toward me. I bowed low, heart trembling, and for a long moment we stood there in silence.
The outcry against Sodom is great. I will destroy them.
Will you indeed sweep away the righteous with the wicked?
No, if there are righteous in there, I'll spare them.
Suppose there are 50 righteous within the city.
If I find 50 righteous, I will spare the whole place.
What if 5 of the 50 are lacking?
I will not destroy it if I find 45.
What if 40 are found there?
I will not do it for the sake of 40.
Suppose 30 are found there.
I will not do it if I find 30.
What if 20 are found?
For the sake of 20, I will not destroy it.
Let not the Lord be angry. What if 10 are found?
For the sake of 10, I will not destroy it.
I exhaled long and low, my eyes closing. When I opened them, He was turning away. That's when I knew that I need to meet you.
How many righteous people did you find?
4. Only a family.
Silence fell like a stone between us. I stared down at the rough wood of the table, my thoughts heavy, swirling.
I can't let Sodom be destroyed. I must save it.
Lot, save yourself.
I didn't reply. I pressed my hands to the table, rose slowly to my feet. The light from the door poured in gold across the floor as I walked toward it, my shadow stretching behind me. Behind me, I felt Abraham's gaze, but I have decided. I thought my meeting with Uncle Abraham was kept secret, but it's not. Not to supernatural beings. Somewhere, far from the flickering oil lamps and murmurs of the tavern, Azrael watched me. On the table before them, a crystal orb glowed violently, and within it, my face. He knew everything.
Interesting.
When I arrived home, I saw my wife sitting at the table, fingers clenched tight around something. Salt. We don't have much left. She was living in her own mind, just like I'm living in my own mind too. She turned, finally, her eyes catching mine, but I was far away, still watching fire fall on cities in my mind.
We have no money left. Not even enough to buy salt.
I barely heard her. Her words floated past me like distant noise. I was home, but I wasn't really there. My mind was still echoing with Abraham's voice. She watched me sit down. I could feel her holding back all the words she wanted to throw, I couldn't even look at her. My finger tapped a slow, quiet rhythm into the wood, the only sound I could make. I'm still watching fire fall on cities in my mind. She turned away, retreating into herself, but she still held the salt like it was all we had left. Maybe it was. Next morning, I stood in the heart of Sodom, hand raised high, voice breaking through the crowd. I tried to warn them. Turn away from your wickedness. But it seems that my word has no impact on them. Judgment is near. The Lord will strike this city.
Will he rain down frogs or fire this time?
He will destroy it with fire and sulfur.
Bring your virgin daughters, then we'll listen.
You mock righteousness while standing on a cliff.
Go back to your prophet games, old man.
You still have time. You can still repent.
Why should we listen to you?
Because the Lord sent me to warn you.
Then tell your Lord we're not interested.
Even now your hearts are too proud to bow.
We bow to no one, especially not invisible gods.
And I stood there, hand falling to my side, breath heavy, my warning lost in a sea of laughter and pride. I came back covered in dust and silence, each step heavier than the last. As I reached the door, I could already feel her waiting. I opened it, and there she was, standing in the center of the room, hands on her hips, eyes burning beneath the lamplight. I stepped inside and closed the door behind me, knowing what would come.
What were you thinking, shouting in the street?
I didn't answer. I couldn't. My eyes dropped to the floor.
Now no one will lend us a single coin.
Our daughter stood off to the side, frozen in the shadows. They were scared.
They say your madness has cursed this house.
The fear behind her anger was understandable. Still, I said nothing. I turned away and walked to the far corner, away from them three. My daughter took a step toward me, then stopped. She thought of saying something but couldn't figure any word. I sank to the floor, my back against the cold stone, and folded into myself. My shoulders trembled, breath sharp, tears spilled into my hands. My daughter watched, eyes wet, gaze locked on me in silence. My breath hitched, body shaking in quiet sobs I couldn't stop. Only the lamplight watched as I collapsed beneath its flicker, alone in the dark. That night, 2 streaks of light cut across the night sky, fast, bright, and silent. A moment later, they crashed on the hillside. When the smoke cleared, 2 figures stood still in the haze, wings on their backs, robes glowing faintly. They were the angels. One of them, with long blonde hair, looked out toward the distant city.
Is this the place?
The other, calm and steady, kept his eyes on the same glowing skyline.
It is...
Suddenly, light rose from their bodies, then slowly faded. The wings vanished. The glow disappeared. By the time they started walking, they looked like ordinary men. Azrael stirred from stillness. The boy beside him clung to him in sleep, unaware. But Azrael's body had tensed. He had seen something. Without a word, he rose, the silk sheets sliding off his shoulders, bare chest rising with silent breath. Across the room, the crystal orb on the table was no longer dormant. It pulsed with light. And within it, 2 figures had appeared, the twin angels. Azrael stared into them, unblinking. The violet light inside his eyes intensified. A cold edge formed at his lips. His jaw clenched. The moment had arrived. I'm leaving, before dawn if I must.
Finally, you decided.
In the corner, our daughters huddled together, hands tight, watching silently.
I have warned them, again and again, but they laugh, they mock, and they curse God's name.
The lamp flickered between us, its gentle pulse marking our silence.
Good.
The girls remained still, one's arm around the other, watching. But their hearts are stone. We can't change them. Still. I can't bear the thought that I just leave them to burn.
That's their choice.
I don't know if I still believe they want saving.
Then save what you can, Lot, even if it's only yourself.
Suddenly, a knock broke the tense silence. I opened it to two young men cloaked in soft light. Their presence was calm, otherworldly. "Please, come in." They stepped inside quietly, their shadows long across the dirt floor. I shut the door behind them, latching it slowly, already sensing what was coming. I know who were they.
My name is Gabriel.
And I am Uriel.
We have been sent by the Lord.
You must take your family and leave the city.
Leave? When?
Tonight.
Before the sun rises.
Wait, leave now? We haven't packed.
There's no time to prepare. There is no time.
You must leave everything behind.
Her eyes widened, tears forming. She didn't ready to leave our belongings behind. It took all our life to make them.
All our things, our lives.
I stood still as their shadows stretched across the tent walls. Something sacred had already begun to fall apart. They came at night, surrounding my house. I seen them through the cracks.
Bring them out, Lot. Bring those beautiful men out, so we can know them.
The whole crowd roared, waving sticks and stones. The fire behind them made their faces look even more twisted. Then a stone flew through the dark and slammed into the door with a heavy thud. I stood frozen, hand on the latch, torn. But I couldn't hide. I opened the door and stepped outside. Right away, a stone struck my forehead. Blood spilled down my face. I staggered from the pain, but forced myself to stay on my feet. The crowd kept shouting. Someone else lifted another stone. "What do you want?" Then the crowd moved aside. Someone was coming forward. He walked out from among them. Azrael, torchlight hit his eyes, cold and sharp.
Hand them over, Lot. Let us taste them.
Is that him?
Uriel nodded slowly without saying a word. Gabriel clenched his hand and looked toward the door again. Azrael took another step, pointing to the mob behind him. Blood was still dripping from my head, but I stared him down. My fear was gone. All I felt was anger. I slammed the door shut. The firelight from outside vanished, and everything fell into shadow. I leaned against the wood, breathing hard, blood still trickling from the side of my head. My daughters rushed toward me, both pale and shaking.
Father, let us go outside. Let them take us, not them.
I froze. My heart sank. I couldn't believe what I was hearing.
They're guests under our roof. This is the only way.
My chest ached. I clenched my fists to keep them from shaking of what I heard from my own daughters. "You don't know what you're asking."
You raised us to do what is right.
That broke me. A single tear slid down my face. God forgive me. I opened the door. The shouting and fire hit me like a wave. "Please, take my daughters instead. They are virgins." Laughter burst from the crowd. Some slapped their thighs.
Virgin daughters, eh? I'd try the small one first.
Then everything stopped. Azrael's smile vanished. His eyes turned to ice.
No, we came for the guests.
Murmurs rippled through the mob, faces growing darker.
Tear him down!
The crowd erupted in a howl. Blood, fire, and hate surged forward. Weapons raised, they charged. Then, out of expectation, Gabriel stepped into the yard, his face calm but firm, walking straight through the smoke and heat. Uriel followed him. Then they began to glow. Their bodies vanished into light. Wings flared out. Robes turned to flame. They stood no longer as men, but as beings made of heaven. The men's eyes started to blind.
I can't see! Help! My eye!
But Azrael didn't seem to be affected by their power.
Azrael.
You traitor.
Azrael took one step forward.
This is where I belong now.
You twisted this city.
You brought darkness here.
They chose me.
One of the men collapsed, sobbing behind him.
You will answer for what you've done.
You fell to feed your pride.
I brought them freedom,
You enslaved them to lust and wrath.
and they welcomed me with open arms.
Your time is ending, Azrael.
Azrael suddenly lunged. Gabriel lifted his hand across his chest to dog to hit. Uriel struck from the side. Azrael's shoulder burst in flame. Light surged from Gabriel's palm straight at Azrael. Azrael screamed as fire overtook him. His eyes bulged. Flame swallowed his face. He was destroyed. The light stated to faint. All around them, the men of the city lay scattered, moaning, clutching their blinded faces. I saw Gabriel turn toward the door, and in that instant, I knew we had to go now. Uriel didn't wait. He grabbed my wife by the wrist and pulled her. Gabriel reached for me and yanked me toward the doorway. My legs moved before my thoughts could catch up. My daughters were just behind us, clutching each other's hands like they were afraid to let go. We ran. All of us. Out into the night, away from the house, away from everything. I didn't dare look back. Gabriel led me across the ridge of sand, my feet sinking with every step. I didn't ask where we were going. I just followed. I could hear my wife's footsteps behind me, uneven, dragging. Uriel held her up. My daughters stayed close, hands clasped, eyes locked ahead. I hadn't seen them cry. I don't know if they still could. We moved in a line like shadows, the six of us, the city shrinking behind. Each step forward felt heavier than the last. Then the sky broke. A single line of fire split the dark. My breath caught. More came. Fire poured down from the stars. The sky itself turned against the place we'd called home. I didn't need to see it. The sound reached me before the meaning did. Somewhere behind that horizon, people still ran, still hoped. But hope can't outrun fire. Some prayers are already too late. Even the strong froze. There comes a moment when even violence forgets what it's for. The ground must have shattered. Pain fell on the innocent and the guilty alike. Judgment doesn't aim. All gone, all burned. They must have screamed. But death turned their voices to silence. Flame found flesh. That was always the end of this. I didn't need to watch. I already carried enough ghosts. Fire rose like a verdict written in the sky. The city was not just ending, it was being erased. And still, they ran. Even at the end, people cling to walls and gates as if they can hold back heaven. The final fall came not from the fire, but from the weight of what the city had become.
My house! My thing!
Do not look back!
My wife cannot escape the city, not in her mind.
Mother, no!
And then she was no longer my wife. There was no prayer for what had just happened. My tears fell. The past gripped my wife harder than any flame could. We stopped our journey in a cave. When I looked up, I broke. She was gone. Just like that. I didn't even get to hold her. I wiped my tears, but they kept coming. My eyes blurred, but her face stayed clear in my mind. I lay down, drained. My arm fell beside me. I felt hollow. I closed my eyes. Each breath hurt. I kept seeing her, the moment she turned. My daughters sat nearby, quiet. I couldn't look at them. I couldn't say her name.
Everything is gone. Cities, the people, no one survived. Not even Mother. We are alone now, only us and Father. If we do nothing, there will be no more people. We must do what is necessary.
I was drunk and unconscious when they started to do it. I didn't know anything. I was still asleep while she did the unforgivable. I was raped by both my daughter. Was that the karma for all the sins I committed when I was in Sodom? Guess I would never know. Behind us, the cities burned, and I had nothing left.
What if the wisest man in history, the one blessed with divine wisdom, wealth beyond measure and unrivaled power, ended his life in regret? How does a ruler who had everything lose sight of the very foundation of his success? This is the story of King Solomon, a man who started with God's favor but strayed into spiritual ruin. At the height of his reign, Solomon's wisdom made him legendary. Rulers from around the world sought his counsel. He built the magnificent temple in Jerusalem, fulfilling his father David's greatest dream. His kingdom prospered beyond imagination, but behind the splendor, a slow and dangerous shift took place. Marrying foreign princesses for political gain, he let idolatry seep into his life. The man who once sought God's wisdom began to chase pleasure, wealth, and power until they consumed him. As we uncover the final chapter of Solomon's life, we'll explore the critical choices that led to his downfall. Was he able to find redemption, or did he leave behind only regret? More importantly, what can his story teach us about avoiding the same traps? If you find this story thought-provoking, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us bring more powerful biblical stories and life-changing lessons straight to you. Now let's step into the heart of Solomon's journey and witness the moments that shaped his fate. Solomon's glorious reign and divine favor. King Solomon began his reign with extraordinary promise, ascending to the throne as the chosen son of David. Unlike many rulers who sought power for personal gain, Solomon's heart initially leaned toward wisdom and righteousness. In 1 Kings 3:5, the Lord appeared to Solomon in a dream at Gibeon and said, "Ask for whatever you want me to give you." Instead of requesting riches, military might, or a long life, Solomon made a humble yet profound request. "Give your servant an understanding heart to judge your people, that I may discern between good and evil. For who is able to govern this great people of yours?" 1 Kings 3:9. This desire for wisdom above all else pleased the Lord, and God granted Solomon more than he had asked for, unparalleled wisdom, as well as riches and honor beyond any other king of his time. 1 Kings 3:10 through 14. Solomon's wisdom became evident almost immediately. One of the most well-known demonstrations of his discernment is the case of the two women who both claimed to be the mother of the same infant. 1 Kings 3:16-28. With divine insight, Solomon proposed to cut the child in two, knowing the true mother would rather give up her claim than see her child harmed. This judgment astounded the people of Israel, confirming that God's wisdom was indeed with their king. His intellect was not limited to governance. Solomon's knowledge extended to nature, philosophy, and the arts. 1 Kings 4:29-30 states, "God gave Solomon wisdom and very great insight, and a breadth of understanding as measureless as the sand on the seashore." Solomon's wisdom was greater than the wisdom of all the people of the East, and greater than all the wisdom of Egypt. He authored 3,000 proverbs and over 1,000 songs. 1 Kings 4:32, covering themes of life, leadership, and faith. His renown spread far beyond Israel, attracting scholars and rulers from distant lands. One of the most famous visitors to test Solomon's wisdom was the Queen of Sheba, 1 Kings 10:1-13. She came bearing costly gifts and difficult questions, and upon hearing his responses, she declared, "The report I heard in my own country about your achievements and your wisdom is true. But I did not believe these things until I came and saw with my own eyes. Indeed, not even half was told me. In wisdom and wealth you have far exceeded the report I heard." 1 Kings 10:6-7. This encounter reinforced Solomon's status as the most blessed and divinely favored king of his time. Yet, Solomon's greatest achievement was not his wisdom or his wealth, but his role in building the Temple of the Lord in Jerusalem, 1 Kings 6. This monumental task, which his father David had longed to complete, became a reality under Solomon's reign. Constructed with the finest materials, including cedar from Lebanon, gold, silver, and bronze, the temple took 7 years to complete and stood as the spiritual heart of Israel. 1 Kings 8:10-11 describes how, at its dedication, the glory of the Lord filled the temple, signifying God's approval and presence among his people. During this time, Israel experienced unprecedented prosperity and peace. 1 Kings 10:23-24 states, "King Solomon was greater in riches and wisdom than all the other kings of the earth." The whole world sought audience with Solomon to hear the wisdom God had put in his heart. His strategic control of trade routes between Egypt and Mesopotamia brought immense wealth into the kingdom. 1 Kings 10:14 records that Solomon's annual gold income alone was 666 talents, approximately 25 tons. His throne, made of ivory and overlaid with gold, was unlike anything seen before. 1 Kings 10:18-20. Even silver was considered of little value in his days, 1 Kings 10:21, illustrating the sheer opulence of his reign. However, with great blessings came great responsibility. The Lord's promises to Solomon were conditional. If he remained faithful, his reign would be long and prosperous. But if he turned away from God, disaster would follow. As Solomon basked in his unprecedented success, he began to drift away from the very wisdom that had set him apart. The seeds of his downfall were beginning to take root, unseen by those who only beheld his grandeur. How did the wisest man on earth fail to heed his own wisdom? What led to his downfall? Let's explore the crucial moments that changed everything. The gradual decline, compromises, and disobedience. Solomon's reign, once marked by divine wisdom and unparalleled prosperity, slowly began to unravel. Though he had been blessed beyond measure, his heart started to drift from the God who had granted him everything. The first signs of decline were subtle, small compromises that over time led to devastating consequences. One of Solomon's greatest missteps was his pursuit of political alliances through marriage. 1 Kings 11:1-2 states, "King Solomon, however, loved many foreign women besides Pharaoh's daughter, Moabites, Ammonites, Edomites, Sidonians, and Hittites. They were from nations about which the Lord had told the Israelites, 'You must not intermarry with them, because they will surely turn your hearts after their gods.' Nevertheless, Solomon held fast to them in love. At first, these marriages may have seemed like strategic moves to strengthen Israel's political influence. However, they soon became Solomon's spiritual downfall. He accumulated 700 wives and 300 concubines, 1 Kings 11:3, and their influence led him to build altars and high places for their gods, including Ashtoreth, Chemosh, and Molech, 1 Kings 11:5-8. These actions directly violated God's commandments and introduced idolatry into the heart of Israel. Beyond his spiritual compromises, Solomon also began amassing excessive wealth and military power. Deuteronomy 17:16-17 had explicitly warned Israel's kings against multiplying horses, silver, and gold for themselves. Yet Solomon did exactly that. His annual income in gold alone was 666 talents, for 1 Kings 10:14, and he imported chariots and horses from Egypt, despite God's warning not to return there. 1 Kings 10:26-28. What had begun as divine blessing had now turned into indulgence and self-reliance. As Solomon's devotion to God waned, his kingdom began to suffer. The unity and peace Israel had once enjoyed started to fracture. Enemies that had long been subdued, Hadad the Edomite, Rezon of Damascus, and Jeroboam, rose against Solomon. 1 Kings 11:14-26. These adversaries were not merely political threats, but signs of God's growing displeasure. Despite 2 direct encounters with the Lord, warning him to remain faithful, 1 Kings 9:6-9, 11:9-11, Solomon continued down his path of compromise. His divided heart led to a divided kingdom, setting the stage for Israel's eventual downfall. The wisest man on earth had failed to heed his own wisdom. The same king who once declared, "The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom," Proverbs 9:10, had allowed fear of loss, ambition, and desire to erode his relationship with God. How could a man so blessed fall so far? The answer lies in the slow, subtle drift from God's commands, one compromise at a time. Psychological factors behind Solomon's fall. Solomon's decline was not just a matter of political alliances or disobedience, it was a battle within his own heart and mind. The wisest man in history did not fall overnight. His downfall was slow, a gradual erosion of faith, shaped by internal struggles that remain relevant even today. It began with success. He had built the temple, expanded Israel's influence, and gained the admiration of rulers from distant lands. But somewhere along the way, his dependence on God weakened. The humility that had once defined him was overshadowed by pride. His accomplishments, his wisdom, his wealth, they became his identity, and he started to believe in his own greatness. The man who once wrote, "Pride goes before destruction, a haughty spirit before a fall," had allowed that very pride to take root in his heart. At first, his compromises seemed justifiable. His marriages to foreign princesses strengthened alliances, ensuring peace. Perhaps he thought he could manage the risks, that he could remain faithful to God while making room for the beliefs of others. But faith doesn't erode in a single moment. It weakens with each small concession. One altar to a foreign god became many. One act of tolerance became a habit. Before long, Solomon was no longer leading Israel in worship of the one true God. He was facilitating idolatry within its borders. Beneath it all, there was a deeper desire, the need for approval. Solomon was not just a king, he was a statesman, an intellectual, a man of influence. The world admired his wisdom, and he wanted to be seen as an enlightened, inclusive ruler. But the pursuit of human approval often comes at the cost of divine obedience. He had sought the respect of other nations, but in doing so, he lost the favor of the one who had placed him on the throne. His love for the world's recognition eclipsed his love for God. And then came indulgence. Ecclesiastes, believed to be written in his later years, reveals a man who had tasted every pleasure, only to find it meaningless. "I denied myself nothing my eyes desired. I refused my heart no pleasure." Gold, horses, music, wine, women, he had it all. But instead of fulfillment, he found emptiness. The more he indulged, the further he drifted. What he once controlled began to control him. His heart, once steadfast, was now divided. The most dangerous part of his decline was how gradual it was. He did not wake up one morning and choose to turn away from God. It happened decision by decision, justification by justification. He ignored the warnings. He silenced the voice of conviction. And by the time he realized how far he had fallen, the damage was irreversible. His life serves as a sobering reminder. No one is immune to spiritual decline, not even the wisest man on earth. Pride, compromise, the need for approval, the allure of pleasure. All of these can slowly erode even the strongest foundation. The question we must ask ourselves is this: are we making the same mistakes? Are we allowing small compromises to take root in our hearts? If Solomon, with all his wisdom, could fall, how much more must we guard ourselves against the same fate? The God's judgment on Solomon. As Solomon continued down his path of compromise and disobedience, the inevitable consequences of his actions began to unfold. The Lord, who had twice appeared to Solomon with clear warnings, now pronounced judgment upon the once great king. Solomon's divided heart had led not only to personal downfall, but also to the unraveling of the very kingdom he had built. 1 Kings 11:9-10 states, "The Lord became angry with Solomon because his heart had turned away from the Lord, the God of Israel, who'd appeared to him twice. Although he had forbidden Solomon to follow other gods, Solomon did not keep the Lord's command." Despite having unparalleled wisdom, Solomon had ignored the very foundation of his success, his covenant relationship with God. God's judgment was swift and severe. The Lord declared that the kingdom would be torn away from Solomon's descendants. However, out of respect for David, God showed mercy. Solomon would not witness the full extent of this judgment during his lifetime. Instead, it would be his son, Rehoboam, who would bear the consequences of his father's failures. 1 Kings 11:11-13. The first signs of this judgment became evident as adversaries rose against Solomon. Hadad the Edomite, a longtime enemy of Israel, returned with a thirst for revenge. 1 Kings 11:14-22. Rezon of Damascus, another rival, established a kingdom that would continually trouble Israel. 1 Kings 11:23-25. Most significantly, Jeroboam, one of Solomon's own officials, was chosen by God to lead 10 of the 12 tribes of Israel. The prophet Ahijah met Jeroboam and tore his cloak into 12 pieces, symbolizing the coming division of Israel. 1 Kings 11:29-31. Despite these clear signs, Solomon made no effort to repent. Instead, he sought to kill Jeroboam in a desperate attempt to maintain control. 1 Kings 11:40. But the judgment of the Lord was already set in motion, and no earthly power could reverse it. Solomon's story is a tragic reminder that no amount of wisdom, wealth, or power can substitute for faithfulness to God. The very man who had written, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding," Proverbs 3:5, had failed to follow his own advice. As Solomon neared the end of his life, the weight of his choices became undeniable. The kingdom he had worked so hard to establish was already beginning to fracture. His legacy, once destined for greatness, was now overshadowed by regret and divine judgment. But what were Solomon's final thoughts? Did he realize too late the cost of his disobedience? And most importantly, what can we learn from his fall? Let's explore his final reflections and the lasting impact of his choices. The final moments of Solomon's life. As Solomon approached his final days, the weight of his choices bore down on him like never before. He had lived in unimaginable splendor, ruled with wisdom that surpassed all others, and achieved feats that would be remembered for generations. Yet, despite all his accomplishments, he found himself alone, reflecting on a life that had drifted away from its divine purpose. Solomon dies in isolation, without glory or joy. Once a great king, he is ultimately undone by his own temptations. The contrast between his glorious beginning and tragic end is stark, a sobering testament to the consequences of turning away from God. The grandeur of his palace, the treasures of his kingdom, and the adoration of the world could not silence the regret that now filled his heart. He had once walked in close fellowship with God, but compromise had led him astray. His many wives had drawn him toward foreign gods, and in his effort to please them, he had erected altars to idols that had no power to save him. He had sought fulfillment in wealth, pleasure, and achievements, yet in the end, he found himself empty. The words he would later write in Ecclesiastes now echoed through his mind. Meaningless, meaningless, everything is meaningless. Ecclesiastes 1:2. Despite the weight of his regret, there was a glimmer of realization. He understood, perhaps too late, that true fulfillment had never been in the power, wisdom, or riches he had accumulated. He had spent his life building an empire, only to realize that without God, it was all fleeting. In his final reflections, he penned these words, "Fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the duty of all mankind." Ecclesiastes 12:13. It was a stark acknowledgement that all else fades, but a life devoted to God remains the only pursuit of true worth. The kingdom Solomon had built was already showing signs of fracture, and though he would not live to see it completely divided, the consequences of his actions would be borne by his descendants. His son Rehoboam would inherit not just a throne, but a nation on the brink of collapse. The judgment of God was set in motion, and there was no turning back. Think about it. Solomon had everything the world could offer, yet in the end, what did it amount to? His wisdom, his riches, his power. All of it meant nothing when measured against eternity. His life serves as a powerful lesson. Even the greatest minds, the richest rulers, and the most influential leaders can lose their way if they allow pride and compromise to erode their faith. As Solomon drew his last breath, did he find peace in his final realization? Or was he tormented by the years he had wasted? We may never fully know. But his story serves as a sobering reminder. Wisdom, success, and even divine favor mean little if the heart is not steadfast in its devotion to God. Are we making the same mistakes? Are we chasing after things that will ultimately fade away, or are we building a foundation that will last for eternity? Solomon's life is a story of both great triumph and tragic failure, a stark reminder of the blessings that come with faithfulness and the dangers of turning away from God. He was given everything, wisdom beyond measure, wealth beyond comprehension, and power unmatched by any ruler of his time. Yet despite all he had, he lost sight of the very source of his success. His early years were marked by devotion. He built the temple, sought God's wisdom, and ruled with justice. But over time, small compromises led to catastrophic consequences. His pursuit of pleasure, his desire for approval, and his accumulation of wealth all contributed to his downfall. The very wisdom that once set him apart became clouded by his indulgences, and his heart drifted far from God. In the end, Solomon looked back on his life with deep regret. The man who had it all ultimately realized that nothing mattered apart from God. His words in Ecclesiastes serve as a solemn conclusion to his journey. Fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the duty of all mankind. Ecclesiastes 12:13. It was a lesson learned too late for him, but not too late for us. Solomon's story challenges us to examine our own lives. Are we making the same mistakes? Are we allowing the pursuit of success, wealth, or approval to pull us away from what truly matters? His life teaches us that even the greatest wisdom is meaningless without obedience to God. Let us learn from his triumphs and his failures. Let us seek not just wisdom, but a heart that remains faithful. Because in the end, it is not what we build, what we achieve, or how much we gain that defines us. It is whether we remain steadfast in our devotion to the one who gave us everything. What are your thoughts on Solomon's journey? Have you ever experienced moments where success or distractions pulled you away from your faith? Share your insights in the comments below. If this message resonated with you, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and hit the notification bell so you never miss future content. Let us know what biblical stories or life lessons you'd like us to cover next. We'd love to hear from you.